For 2 years, the ugly bronze lump, remember the one almost thrown back into the sea, sits in a damp corner of the National Archaeological Museum. It's an afterthought, a piece of corroded junk surrounded by the elegant, silent forms of the statues that get all the attention. Then, on May 17, 1902, something happens. The artifact, slowly drying out after 2,000 years in a watery tomb, succumbs to the strain. With a faint crack, a piece of its rocky outer shell breaks away. A museum archaeologist, Valerio Stais, happens to be passing by. He glances at the broken object and stops dead in his tracks. This is the moment the world pivots, even if no one knows it yet. Peeking from the green corroded mess is something that should not exist. It's a gear wheel, about the size of a quarter, with perfectly formed triangular teeth. Stais leans closer, his mind refusing to process what his eyes are seeing. He spots another gear, then another, embedded within layers of what now looks like a complex fossilized machine. He immediately recognizes this as a mechanism of some kind, but his announcement is met with ridicule. The prevailing academic consensus is swift and brutal. He's mistaken. The object, they declare, must be a later intrusion, perhaps a medieval clock or astrolabe from a much later shipwreck that happened to sink in the same spot. It's a classic case of cognitive dissonance. The find is so far outside the accepted technological capabilities of the ancient Greeks that it's easier to invent a complex coincidence than to face the evidence. This sparks the first great unresolved academic debate surrounding the artifact. Experts still argue whether the initial dismissal was born of genuine scientific caution or an institutional refusal to accept evidence that so violently contradicted their established view of the ancient world. For decades, the lump becomes an academic pariah. It's an anomaly, a problem object. The second irony is that the world's leading historians, the very people tasked with interpreting the past, were the most determined to explain it away. Their expertise became a prison, blinding them to the impossible truth right in front of them. The artifact languished, occasionally examined but mostly ignored, a technological ghost haunting the museum's storerooms. During this long period of neglect, a strange, mysterious detail emerges. Scholars examining the fragments under magnification notice faint Greek inscriptions on the surfaces of the device's casing. They are tiny, barely a millimeter high, and incredibly difficult to decipher. But they are undeniably ancient Greek characters. This is a massive clue, a breadcrumb trail leading back to its true origins, yet it's not enough to sway the skeptics. A clockwork mechanism from the time of Julius Caesar? Preposterous! The historical event coloring this entire debate is the state of early 20th century archaeology itself, which was focused on art, architecture, and politics, not on a lost history of precision engineering. The Antikythera Mechanism, as it would become to be called, didn't fit the narrative. It was a gear in a world of chisels. So it sat, a three-dimensional paradox, its secrets still locked away, waiting for a new kind of eye that could see what was truly hidden inside. Decades pass. The world is transformed by 2 world wars and the dawn of the atomic age. The mechanism, still in its fragmented state, continues to confound the few scholars brave enough to study it. Then, in the 1970s, a new kind of technology arrives, offering a way to see without destroying. Remember the dismissive academics from the turn of the century? Their opinions are about to be rendered spectacularly obsolete. A Yale historian named Derek J. DeSala Price, who has dedicated his life to this puzzle, employs gamma radiography, a powerful cousin to the X-ray, to peer inside the corroded bronze for the first time. The images are grainy, ghost-like, But what they reveal is electrifying. The gears are not just a simple collection, they are an intricate system, a clockwork of the cosmos. This initial breakthrough paves the way for a 21st century investigation using far more advanced technology. A team of international scientists brings in a custom-built 8-ton X-ray machine, powerful enough to resolve features smaller than a grain of sand. The first great irony is that this ancient analog computer is finally giving up its secrets thanks to its distant digital descendants. As the 3D reconstructions materialize on their computer screens, the room falls silent. The true complexity is staggering. They can now count every single tooth on every one of the 30 surviving bronze gears. They trace the intricate paths of the drivetrains, revealing a machine of breathtaking genius. The device isn't just a calendar, it's an astronomical predictor. A turn of a single crank on the side sets the whole universe in motion. The front dial shows the position of the sun and moon against the zodiac, while the back dials operate on a much grander scale. One spiral dial flawlessly predicts lunar and solar eclipses aligned with the 223-month cycle known as the Saros cycle. This alone is remarkable, but then they find something else, something that completely shatters our understanding of ancient science. Deep within the gear train is a pin and slot mechanism, an ingenious device that models the moon's variable speed as it travels in its elliptical orbit. This is a subtle cosmic anomaly, a complex theory that our history books tell us wasn't fully understood or mechanically modeled for another 1,500 years. This raises a new, deeply unsettling academic debate. Were the makers of this device simply brilliant observational astronomers, or were they working from a lost body of theoretical science we have no record of? Amidst this cosmic grandeur, they find a wonderfully strange and human detail. A smaller dial dedicated to tracking the 4-year cycle of the ancient Pan-Helletic Games, including the famous Olympic Games. It's a mind-bending fusion of the sacred and the profane. Imagine a NASA supercomputer with a side function that tells you when the next Super Bowl is. This little dial proves the device wasn't just a tool for high priests or astronomers, it was for a wider audience. And here lies the final, tragic twist of this chapter. This machine, so brilliant, it could map the heavens and predict the blotting out of the sun, possessed no ability to foresee a simple earthly squall. The very storm that sent its ship to the bottom of the Aegean, that single mundane historical event, was the one variable its gears could never compute. The machine that knew the future of the cosmos was blind to its own fate. The X-ray scans proved what the machine was. Now the terrifying question becomes who made it and how. The trail of evidence immediately leads to one of the most famous names in all of science, Archimedes of Syracuse. We know from historical texts, particularly the writings of the Roman orator Cicero, that Archimedes created at least 2 bronze spheres, or orreries, that demonstrated the motions of the heavenly bodies. Cicero even describes seeing one of them, marveling at how a single rotation could reproduce the distinct movements of the sun, moon, and 5 planets. This account, long dismissed by some as a rhetorical flourish, now sounds chillingly like a description of the Antikythera Mechanism. It's a compelling connection, linking the artifact to a known, singular genius. But this is where the neat narrative begins to unravel, leading us to our first ironic twist. The shipwreck, based on its pottery and coins, is dated to around 70 to 60 BC. Archimedes was famously killed by a Roman soldier during the siege of Syracuse in 212 BC, a well-documented historical event. That's a gap of nearly 150 years. So the machine on the ship could not have been built by Archimedes himself. Could it be a copy? Or perhaps a later model inspired by his work? This opens up a profound academic debate that rages to this day. Was Archimedes a lone, isolated peak of genius? Or was he the most famous product of a lost school or tradition of precision engineering? Remember the inscriptions, those tiny Greek characters that first hinted at the device's origins? Further analysis revealed a stunningly strange detail. The text refers to specific athletic games held on the island of Rhodes. This strongly suggests the machine was built there, or at least for someone from there. And who was the leading astronomer and philosopher in Rhodes at that time? A man named Posidonius, who ran a renowned school and was known to be fascinated by astronomical machines. Cicero himself had studied with Posidonius. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces seemed to snap together. A school in Rhodes, continuing the legacy of Archimedes, building ever more sophisticated devices. It's a perfect, satisfying theory. Almost too perfect. This is the second twist. Every other piece of technology from this period, levers, catapults, water pumps, show a clear lineage of development. We have examples of crude versions, improved versions, and refined versions. We see the trial and error. But the Antikythera Mechanism has no parents and no children. It appears in the archaeological record fully formed, a masterpiece of design and execution with no known predecessors. Its gears use techniques like the differential gear train that wouldn't reappear in Europe until the clockmakers of the 16th century. It's as if someone invented a steam engine in the Stone Age. This perfect uniqueness is perhaps the most unnerving aspect of the entire mystery. The logical, comfortable theory of a Rhodian school crumbles under this single, glaring fact. If they were making these, where are the others? Where are the prototypes, the failed attempts, the simpler models? It's a technological ghost, a singular miracle that leaves us with a deeply uncomfortable third option. Maybe the person or people who built it weren't part of our known history at all. So we stand at a crossroads, staring at two deeply unsatisfying paths. On one side, we have the lost school theory, a continuous but completely invisible tradition of genius descending from Archimedes. It's a plausible but frustrating explanation, as it requires us to accept that an entire field of advanced engineering flourished, produced a single masterpiece, and then vanished without a trace, like a river disappearing into the desert. Remember the debate about whether this was a singular genius or a whole school? That debate now feels small, almost quaint, because the alternative is so much more radical. The second path leads us somewhere else entirely, to a conclusion that feels more like science fiction than history, but one that the evidence, in its stubborn silence, almost forces us to consider. The perfection of the mechanism, its sudden appearance without any evolutionary predecessors, is the first great haunting irony. It's a paradox. In science, a unique data point is often an error, an outlier to be discarded. But what if, in history, a unique data point is a clue to a completely different story? This leads to a chilling hypothesis, that the Antikythera Mechanism is not the pinnacle of an ancient technology we've lost, but rather a remnant of one we never knew existed. Perhaps it's a relic from a much older, far more advanced global civilization that collapsed, a great reset of human knowledge. This theory connects to other out-of-place artifacts or ooparts found around the world, like the precision-cut stones of Pumapunku in Bolivia, or ancient accounts of flying machines in Indian texts. Experts still argue furiously, of course, whether these are isolated mysteries or connected dots in a vast, forgotten picture. And here lies the strangest, most mysterious detail of all. The X-rays revealed more than just gears. They revealed a user manual etched into the device's metal plates. One translated line reads, "The color of the eclipse is," but the rest is illegible. The color of an eclipse? We know today this relates to atmospheric conditions, but the very idea of predicting such a specific aesthetic detail suggests a level of understanding that is simply staggering. It's one thing to predict that an eclipse will happen. It's another to predict what it will look like. This isn't just astronomy. It's a form of predictive physics that feels disturbingly modern. This brings us to our final, terrifying twist. We've been assuming the builders were human, from our own lineage. But the complete erasure of this technology from the historical record is so profound, so absolute, that it invites a more speculative, and for many, a more terrifying thought. What if the machine was not a product of a lost human past, but of a non-human one? Or perhaps a future one? Think of the historical event of the shipwreck itself, a random act of nature. If that storm had never happened, if that ship had reached its destination in Rome, the mechanism might have been used, copied, and eventually lost to time and war. Its existence was a cosmic accident, but its existence forces us the ultimate question. Does the Antikythera Mechanism represent the peak of a forgotten human past, or is it a single surviving echo of a future that has already happened? The gears are silent, and the sea keeps its secrets. The choice of what to believe is yours. The story of the Antikythera Mechanism doesn't truly end, because it's a narrative that continues to unfold with each new technological advancement that allows us to see deeper into its corroded heart. It serves as a profound and humbling reminder that our modern world, with all its accumulated knowledge, may only be rediscovering truths that were known long ago, etched in bronze and lost beneath the waves. The silence of the past is not always an indication of simplicity. Sometimes it is the deafening roar of a knowledge so great that its loss left the void we are only now beginning to comprehend. We will continue to explore these forgotten corners of history, these technological ghosts that haunt our museums and challenge our most fundamental assumptions about who we are and where we come from. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the impossible. Your curiosity and willingness to question the accepted story are what make these explorations so rewarding. If you enjoyed this dive into the unknown, a simple like, a thoughtful comment, or sharing this video with a friend who loves a good mystery goes a long way. Stay curious and never stop questioning. Imagine the deep, crushing blackness of the Aegean Sea, where sunlight dies 100 feet above the seabed. It's a place of immense pressure and cold, a graveyard where history sleeps undisturbed. We think of our iPhones and smartwatches as the pinnacle of human achievement, the result of a long, steady march of progress. But what if I told you that a device, arguably more sophisticated than a 19th century Swiss watch, was pulled from those crushing depths over 120 years ago? Perhaps everything you thought you knew about the ancient world, about its limitations and its genius, is wrong. Have we been lied to all along? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and the current time in the comments. It's always fascinating to see where everyone is tuning in from. I want to hear your theories as we go, because this story is going to test the very limits of what you believe is possible. The year is 1900. A team of Greek sponge divers led by Captain Dimitrios Kontos is sailing home to the island of Symi. Their ship, a small, weathered vessel, is suddenly caught in a violent Easter storm, a real historical tempest that blows them wildly off course. Seeking shelter, they anchor near the remote, rocky island of Antikythera. When the storm subsides, they decide to make the best of a bad situation and dive for sponges in these uncharted waters. A diver named Elias Statiadis puts on his heavy canvas suit and brass helmet, the lifeline hissing as he descends into the blue abyss. Minutes later, he's pulled to the surface, frantic, his eyes wide with terror. He babbles about a horrifying sight on the seafloor, a heap of rotten corpses and dead horses. This is the first ironic twist in our story. The captain, a man not given to flights of fancy, thinks Statiadis is hallucinating from nitrogen narcosis, the rapture of the deep. Annoyed but cautious, he decides to dive himself. As he descends to 150 feet, the scene becomes in focus. The corpses are not human at all. They are a breathtaking collection of bronze and marble statues, scattered across the ghostly remains of a massive Roman-era shipwreck. They have stumbled upon one of the richest ancient shipwrecks ever found. Amidst the priceless artifacts, the stoic faces of philosophers, the powerful limbs of athletes, they find something else. It's a corroded, calcified lump of bronze no larger than a modern laptop, fused with sediment and rock. It's ugly, indistinct, and completely overshadowed by the gleaming treasures around it. This is the second twist. The single most important object in the entire wreck, the one that will rewrite history, is the one they almost toss back into the sea as debris. Experts still argue whether it was sheer luck or a flicker of intuition that stopped them from discarding it entirely. For now, it's just another piece of wreckage hauled onto the deck and sent to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, where it will sit in storage, ignored and forgotten for 2 long years. The world fawns over the statues, but the real marvel is patiently waiting, its secrets locked inside, ready to crack.